Welcome to episode 25 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Devil in the Dark.
In this week's episode, Kirk and Spock's efforts to protect a valuable mining facility bring them face to face with a life form they had never imagined encountering. With the human death toll rising, they must decide how to engage the creature, but will it listen to reason? Or is it a mindless killer that must be destroyed?
Scotty, ride herd on it. Kind words, tender loving care, kisses, baby, and flatter if you have to, but keep it going.
Alright Ian, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you this week?
I've been babied, I've been flattered, I've been kept going.
Not by me.
Thankfully.
Yeah. It's another strong episode this week.
I liked this one.
I really liked it.
And for once, the Enterprise led by Kirk didn't want to get in there in the end and destroy a civilization.
Good moral questions though. Stuff to get your teeth into.
Yeah, I think we can gnaw over a few of the issues.
Fantastic. We'll get on to that straight away. But in the meantime, I should let people know if they want to speak to us in between episodes, they can get hold of us on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter, and we're on Facebook, where we are at Trek Podcast, all those places. And also, StarTrekPodcast.com. There's a post up for every episode. You can share your reminiscences, your thoughts on either the episode or the podcast itself, and we're happy to chat to you there as well.
I know the listeners will be expecting and up for some more snooker chat. Did you enjoy the
No, there's no snooker chat. Let's move on.
Those two semi-finals?
It's finished.
Amazing.
No, it's finished.
And McGill,
no,
Wilson.
I'm not discussing snooker this week.
Amazing frame. No?
No.
Let's crack on.
An interesting opening section to the episode this week.
Yeah, another lovely shot of an industrial colony.
Yes, in the original we had the canvas painted one, but the enhanced edition, remastered edition, has a more down to earth sort of 3D feel to it.
I've mentioned it before. I mean, I do like when they set the scene with these paintings or the remastered shots. It's charming.
It felt industrial right from the start. Not just the scenery, but also the outfits and the way that the people were speaking. It was more sort of blue collar stuff.
Yeah, a bit of The Running Man about it.
Yes, it was. Never seen it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. We head inside a mine that looks in some sort of disarray, and a man called Sam in an orange jumpsuit is creeping nervously around with a weapon drawn.
He is. There's a leader of this group going by the name of Vanderberg.
But this is Sam's on his own, and he hears voices, and this other group appears.
Yes, they join him. It's a
relief party, I think they're
something
called.
on those lines. I think, yes, it's a changing of the shift, as it were. There seems to be some great deal of concern amongst the group.
And rightly so. Apparently there's a thing down there, and it's killed how many people?
50 people.
Apparently, yeah.
And there's only 6 of them here.
Yeah. This Chief Vandenberg, he tells a terrified Schmitter,
It's his turn,
to stay on guard with his weapon drawn, which he reluctantly agrees to do.
He, though, has heard of relief for himself on its way.
Yeah, the Enterprise.
He's reassured, it's coming, don't worry.
See, this is a question I had. I mean, I think it is answered and explained throughout the episode, but I wasn't necessarily aware that this would be within their remit.
They're on a mission of exploration.
Yeah, exploration is different from security and defence, and...
But you see, they get given these little extra jobs every now and then. They had to carry what was it they were taking? Somebody's...
What was that? The vaccines.
Yeah, but in the conscience of the king, they had to deliver potatoes or something for somebody.
That's true. Yeah, so I suppose they do get involved in all sorts.
Yeah.
In any case, they leave Schmitter alone in the darkened mine, and unfortunately, within seconds, the monster comes across him, and hearing his scream, the party rush back just in time to
find his remains.
Yeah.
He's not in time, just out of time.
And Vanderberg notes that he ended up just like the rest of them, burned to a crisp.
Is it not Vanderberg?
Is it?
I think it is. Shall we settle on one?
Bathenberg.
We get the credits at this point.
Then a captain's log, 3196.1.
Is it the only captain's log of the episode?
It might be.
I don't remember another one. We'll see as we go along.
We will.
It'll be in my notes.
What does this log tell us?
So it's another one where Kirk brings us up to date with the Enterprise's perspective. They've been summoned to Janus 6. They're responding to a distress call, so it's not really part of their mission so much as they're obliged to help when they receive a distress call.
Janus 6, what do you think of when you hear Janus 6?
Samantha Janus.
Yeah. Or someone once called her, was it the Dennis Pennis? Not sure. Samantha, what does the J stand for? Samantha J. Doesn't matter. It was, if anyone in the UK, maybe I don't know if you got it in the States, but it was a show, I think it ran for about 4 seasons, Game On in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And she was incredible in that.
She wanted to be in EastEnders for a long time as well.
Yeah, I think she goes by her married name Womack now.
Yeah.
But yeah, mid-90s Samantha Janus was top-notch.
Okay.
Anyhow, yeah, so we're down in Janus 6.
Yeah, McCoy, Spock and Kirk have beamed down to meet with Vanderberg, who is the administrative head of the colony.
Correct. They're in his office. Kirk gets right to the point and seems fairly aggressive and unconvinced by demanding to know from Vanderberg what this supposed monster has done and when it started. Now, of all the things that he's experienced,
yeah,
it's almost as if he has never got himself into any scrapes with monsters or weird things, because he's like, what are you talking about, Vanderberg? I'm a monster, you say? Don't be stupid.
Ridiculous suggestion.
In any case, he wants to know what has been going on.
About 3 months ago, we opened up a new level. Sensors gave us an unusually rich per GM reading. Not only per GM, whatever you want. Uranium, cerium, platinum. The whole planet's like that. It's a treasure house.
Yes, we're aware of that. If mining conditions weren't so difficult, Janus 6 could supply the mineral needs of 1,000 planets. But what happened?
First, the automatic machinery, piece by piece, started to almost disintegrate. Metal began dissolving away. There was no reason for it, and our chemists were unable to analyze the corrosive agent.
I'm sure there is an answer. It simply has not yet been discovered.
Yes, it has. I don't know what this butchering monster is, but I know what it's doing. Our maintenance engineers sent down into the drifts to repair the corroded machinery. We found them, seared to a crisp.
Volcanic activity?
There is no current volcanic activity on this planet, Captain.
He's right, none. At first, the depths were down deep, but they've been moving up toward our levels. The last man died 2 days ago, 3 levels below this.
Same way? Burned?
I'd like to examine the body.
We kept it for you. There isn't much left. Roberts will show you.
It seems unfeasible that one planet would contain enough mineral deposits to supply 1,000 others, unless it's massive.
Yeah, but it's only colonies, isn't it? So it's not like complete worlds necessarily. It might only be colonies of a few thousand people.
And I suppose with the value of those particular elements, it might be that you don't need much of them for it to be worth a lot.
Sure. After McCoy leaves, Vanderberg confirms that guards were posted down the mines and 5 have died, just as the chief engineering officer, Ed Appel, enters, stating that he has seen the creature. When he arrived, I must admit, I thought he was like a bit like a Scooby-Doo baddie. I thought in the end it was going to be him, I'll be honest.
Pull his mask off and he's the monster.
Well, I thought maybe he was involved some way.
He's an odd sort, wasn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't very likeable.
Not at all likeable. He describes the creature as huge and shaggy.
Oh, Scooby-Doo.
He's the only man who's taken a shot at it, but to no effect.
Yeah, well, he says that he shot it with a phaser. But Spock has a little dig at him by saying, well, you'd have shot at it.
Yeah, he says, no, I hit it. Nothing happened.
This fascinates Spock. Why the attitude with him? There immediately, I think there is, we saw with Kirk and Vanderberg and now Spock's getting involved, they seem passively aggressive or unsympathetic or unwilling to help.
I think, there's an element here, or it seemed to me an element of the Enterprise crew thinking they're smarter and more capable than the miners, or the miners expecting them to think like that and reacting as though they're going to think like that.
Yeah.
Because they're just miners waiting for wives. That would be a different episode.
Appel only saw the monster for a moment and can't describe it more than it being big and shaggy, as you mentioned. But Vanderberg wants to remind him of his problem. Production has ceased, as no one will go into the lower levels, and the Enterprise will have to sort this out as the Federation wants its per diem.
I'm sure it does. Spock has been, meanwhile, distracted.
How?
He's spotted a large spherical object, which he's told is a silicon nodule with no commercial value, or at least that's what they put on the customs label.
Yeah, he's holding this at the moment, isn't he?
He is. He's examining it very
Picking
carefully.
things up. You should be doing that.
It could be poisonous. Stop touching stuff.
Yeah, it's not the last time in the episode that they just get their hands on things they don't know about.
Exactly.
Yeah, Spock is intrigued by this, and it seems to annoy the Chief. He just wants them to sort out his monster problem.
He doesn't want to collect rocks, I think he says. And then he and Appel leave as McCoy returns.
Yes, to inform them that Schmitter didn't burn to death. Rather, he was corroded as if he had ended up in a vat of acid.
That's not very pleasant, is it?
Well, I'm not sure.
It's a supervillain origin story, but I think you said Joker, ain't it? Or is it Harley Quinn, one or other of them?
In Death Wish 4 or 5, maybe it's 5, it's set in the garment industry, or the garment sector, and one of the baddies throws his henchman or somebody else into a vat of acid. And the big question is always, because it's in let's say a garment factory.
Why do they have a vat of acid?
Who has a massive vat of acid just lying around?
Well, it must be a thing, because even McCoy notes it as a possibility.
Sure.
Unless he's been watching the same movie. Did you like the comically terrible charts that they used to map the mine?
Yeah, they were.
Like a child's drawing.
Wasn't very sophisticated, certainly for the year, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, Kirk asks if the acid would be strong enough to eat machinery. And McCoy responds, yeah, it could eat anything. Meanwhile, Spock has been studying these childlike charts that you mentioned.
Yes, and he's come to some conclusions, but before he can say much, Vanderberg returns to advise that the chart is about a year old.
Yeah, but what is the conclusion that he gets to?
I think he's charted the points at which the deaths have taken place. I don't know how he's done that. He must have that data from somewhere. Maybe it's on one of the other pages of the chart.
And from this he can work out that the creature must have been travelling at incredible speed.
Yes, to get between the different spots in the time allowed.
Does that ever get resolved? Is that because of the tunnels?
Yes, they didn't realise it was making new tunnels.
Right, okay.
But it was still doing that quickly as well, because remember they saw the new tunnel and they said it goes back as far as you can see, but it's brand new.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyhow, Spock is asked about life on the planet below the surface, and he reports that they did a scan before they came down and found nothing other than the expected mining colony and the people from the colony.
Yeah, there's no sign of life as they know it.
I mean, they also, it seemed like a bit of a leap to this sort of, alternative forms of life, but I suppose when you look at it, they know there is something there.
Yeah.
So they have to start considering these sort of out of the box, as it were, possibilities.
Sure. Kirk states that they can't cover every tunnel by foot, but that they must get the production started again, and so Spock suggests forcing another appearance.
This reminds me of people trying to get the economy going by making folk go out to work in a pandemic.
But having witnessed the devastation the monster has caused, Vanderberg is understandably hesitant.
Yes, just as he highlights the fact that the creature kills people. We see the creature killing somebody to emphasise the point.
Yeah, it's another guard in the tunnel outside. He's been disintegrated by the monster, and a hole is being made in the door of a room. I think it's the reactor room.
Yeah, we're about to find out a bit more about that, because as Kirk starts to posit the suggestion of abnormal life functions being a consideration, an alarm sounds.
Something has happened in this reactor room, and that's where we head. So after climbing through the hole that is made in the door, Vanderberg points to the destruction of the main circulating pump of the reactor, which apparently doesn't have a replacement.
Yes, it's not been destroyed, it's been taken.
Sabotage.
Yeah, that's a sign of intelligence, perhaps.
Certainly.
They should certainly be taking it that way.
They now have a major dilemma, as without the pump, the reactor could poison half the planet, but if they shut it down...
Yeah, that supplies the power for their life support. So they can either suffocate or die from radiation poisoning.
What would you go for?
I think they both sound awful, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, suffocation, it'd be horrible, but over in what, a minute or two? Radiation poisoning, that, I mean, we don't know how long that
Yeah, you could just see your body fall apart in front of you.
Yeah, over a course of a couple of hours, maybe.
Yeah.
Days.
Well, if you've ever watched Chernobyl,
Yeah.
it's pretty gruesome stuff. And we know that there's uranium and plutonium on the planet.
I'm going for suffocation.
We get a quick visit to the Enterprise now.
Yeah, up in the bridge.
And we see both ends here of a conversation between Scotty and Kirk, where Scotty advises that he hasn't seen a pump of this type for 20 years, but he can rig up a temporary solution that might hold for 48 hours.
Yeah, so Kirk tells him to beam down immediately with the required parts.
It's to be a top priority for him.
Yeah, no hanging around. Don't finish your coffee. Back down in the reactor room, Vanderberg is worried about what is going to happen and is not happy about the situation, but Kirk reminds him that the alternative is to evacuate everyone to the Enterprise. How big is the Enterprise? I mean, I've got an idea, but it means there can't be that many people in this colony.
No, I don't think there's that many. I think it's a few hundred.
Can the Enterprise take a few hundred?
I'm sure it can. I mean, it's got a crew of 400 and something.
Yeah, but that must be at near capacity.
Yeah, but if you put everybody in the theatre and the bowling alley,
True. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be fine. In any event, Kirk hopes that they will have an opportunity to recover the original part by the time that the replacement packs in. And I think there's still this sort of emphasis on needing the minerals. They don't want to abandon the facility because of the sheer value of the rocks.
Yeah, I think Kirk mentions the 12 planets that depend upon the mining. But Vanderberg is more concerned with the murder of his own people at this point and wants the monster killed.
That's a fair priority for a leader.
Yeah, Vanderberg, I think he's meant to... You're not meant to like him.
He's not the voice of the audience, for example.
He's not, but he should be. You see, that's how he's been written. You're meant to think, oh yeah, you're meant to be on the side of Kirk and Spock. But I'm thinking, if I was in that situation, yeah, Vanderberg is... I can totally relate to his attitude. He's not caring about anything else. We're dying down here, get it sorted.
I think that plays out through the rest of the episode as well, with the development in his attitudes as well.
Yeah. We go to a meeting room now, I think.
I think it's Vanderberg's office that we saw earlier, but he's not there.
Okay. Spock claims that the pump was taken deliberately, as it is essential equipment, and agrees that the creature is trying to get rid of the colonists.
They have a little bit of a chat about why it would choose to do that now after so many years of mining. And Spock has an unusual idea.
Yes, he suggests that the life form is perhaps based on silicon rather than carbon.
He does, and Kirk remembers reading about this, although McCoy's a bit more sceptical.
Yeah, he laughs at this fantasy. But Kirk stops him, as you say, and claims that he is aware of this theory.
Plenty of silicone-based life on Instagram.
And he also claims that it would explain why the phasers had little impact.
It would, but they have a weird conversation now about the difference between Phaser 1 and Phaser 2, essentially.
This seemed just very convenient for this.
This is the only time it's ever mentioned, but I think what they're basically saying is what the miners had were toys. Yeah. Toy phasers. They can't do very much.
No. Yeah, they've got setting 1 and the Enterprise have got setting 2 phasers.
It's a different model.
McCoy again tries to shoot down the theory due to the oxygen-based atmosphere, but Spock counters that maybe the monster can survive briefly in such a place before returning back to where it came from.
Perhaps.
So Kirk tells Spock to arrange guards to be armed with Phaser 2 weaponry, but notices that Spock is still fascinated by this silicon ball.
Yes, he has another theory, but unusually he is concerned about the ridicule of McCoy, or at least I think he's not ready to explain his theory. So Kirk tells him to think about it quickly because they don't have a lot of time, but doesn't push him to expand at this stage.
Yeah.
Up in the reactor room, Scotty and Kirk, who's now there, I think it's quite close by because this is where they ran to with the alarm earlier, so he's probably just a few seconds later. There's an explanation that the jury-rig pump is holding for now, but it won't last long.
Yeah, Kirk then receives a communication from Spock informing him that security from the Enterprise are waiting for him in Vanderberg's office. But before he heads there, Kirk gives Scotty some words of advice to work by, and that's what we heard.
Yes, to caress this pump.
In the office, what's happening?
There's an ominous-looking lineup of red shirts in Vanderberg's room.
Yeah, dead meat.
Every one of them looks like he is lined up for the slaughter. They're addressed by Kirk and advised to shoot on sight using full power on their phasers.
Yeah, there have to be no deaths apart from the creature. Before Spock asks what level the silicon modules were found at and is told the 23rd, I think.
He is. So Kirk sends Giotto down to that level, based on a theory they've been working on.
Yes, whilst telling Vanderberg to keep his men in a safe place.
But he says there are no safe spaces here.
Down on level 23, so it must be level minus 23, is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, just count down, starting 0 at the top.
Spock has adjusted his tricorder for silicon and tells Kirk...
He's pressed the big red button that says silicon.
Yeah, that he is sensing traces of it before detecting a life form based on that particular element.
Just in time for it to kill one of the red shirts. Tally mark number 1 on the wall.
Yep. Kirk finds the remains of this chap, and it doesn't look good.
No, but Kirk and Spock are together at this stage, and they think that the creature must be nearby. Perhaps they're going to be able to corner it.
Sure, because Spock then finds a tunnel that was formed just moments earlier, and Kirk is impressed by how deep and well carved it is, claiming that their own machines or phasers could not have done such a good job.
No, and then as they turn, they find that they are indeed confronted by the monster.
Yes,
a terrifying looking thing.
A meatball pizza topping.
What?
It looks like a meatball pizza.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
It looks like a horrific silicon-based monster.
It doesn't. In fact, every time I seen it, I thought to myself,
You're a strange, strange man.
It looked delicious.
It didn't look delicious at all. It's corrosive.
No, it was corrosively delicious.
Unbelievable. They shoot it with their Type 2 phasers set to silicon, and they still can't kill it.
No, but it does disappear down a tunnel.
It does. It runs off.
Yeah, and at this point, some of the security team arrive on the scene as Kirk and Spock are amazed at the speed of it and realise that this escape tunnel is only minutes old.
Yes. Spock then picks up a trunk.
This is crazy.
He doesn't even check whether it's corrosive or hot anything.
We know for a fact this thing can burn through.
I've just seen it burn its way through a wall.
Yeah. You wouldn't be picking that up, would you?
No.
He deserves to lose his arms.
Both of them.
And his ears.
That'd be unfortunate. He is lucky that he is not harmed in any way.
But it's more than luck.
Yeah, well, extremely lucky.
Extremely lucky, yes. Very lucky.
Yes.
Anyway, he gets away with it and starts an examination.
Of animal tissue. What is it?
Closest approximation I could come to would be fibrous asbestos. A mineral, Captain.
Then your guess was right.
It would seem so. Silicon-based.
Summation.
We are dealing with a silicon creature of the deep rocks, capable of moving through solid rock as easily as we move through the air.
That would account for the tunnels.
Correct. This creature's body secretes an extremely powerful corrosive.
Powerful enough to dissolve the door of the reactor chamber.
And it explains the murdered men.
It's definitely phaser resistant. We had a weapon set for silicon and on full power. Yet we only damaged it. It still lives.
You mean it's impossible to kill?
No, it might require massed phasers.
Or a single phaser with much longer contact.
Commander, pass this on to your men. We knew it was a killer. Now it's wounded. Probably in pain, somewhere back there. There's nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal.
Well, there's lots of things more dangerous than a wounded animal.
2 wounded animals.
Yeah, a loaded gun in the hands of a child. Or a serial killer.
Any of these things.
Yeah. I've got a problem with the concept of this creature, as we heard in the clip, being able to pass through rock as easy as we pass through air. If that was the case, and from what we come to learn, there could be lots of them, or there has been over the years, they wouldn't be obliged to use the tunnels, so they could just walk everywhere, and eventually, or quickly, the whole place could collapse because there's nothing to support it if they just go wherever they want.
I think Spock's exaggerating.
You think?
Yeah. I think they can cut the tunnels very easily, but there must be some reason why they don't.
Yeah. But if they can cut it that easily, if they're wanting to get somewhere, they wouldn't use the tunnel network. They would just
Well, he's not
a
using
shortcut.
tunnel. He's cut at least 3 new tunnels that we've seen.
That's what I'm saying. So eventually the whole place will collapse. You can't just keep cutting tunnels.
Oh, there's a whole planet worth of rock to get through.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Maybe they're aware of the structure. They're quite intelligent.
Hmm.
They know not to. I mean, later on we see one knocking down a supporting pillar.
That's true.
So they're probably aware of what would cause cave-ins and what wouldn't.
Unlike O'Reilly in Fawlty Towers.
Well, indeed.
If you like Fawlty Towers, there's a podcast out there. I think if you search for the Fawlty Towers podcast, you'd come across it.
Fabulous show.
Yeah,
They're a bit PC, the guys on it, but...
Anyway, Kirk then sends off security with orders to focus the search on this sector as Spock updates him on some unusual readings that he has taken.
He does. What are those?
Well, apparently there is only one creature within 100 miles and in the thousands of tunnels. So either the tricorder is wrong, the creature has an extremely long lifespan, or this creature is the last of its race.
And if so, killing it would be a crime against science. But let's kill it anyway. Both Kirk and Spock agree.
Well, this is one of the moral dilemmas that you maybe mentioned at the start of the show. I have to admit, if there was a monster after me and I knew it was the last of its race, but it was maybe going to kill me, I would kill it first.
Well, they've already done that in the Man Trap. The last of the salt monsters came for them and they killed it.
Yeah.
Without hesitating.
If you hesitate, you lose.
Get the salt sucked out of you. Spock is less enthusiastic than Kirk about the killing on this occasion.
He is. However, he doesn't argue, but yeah, it's obvious that he is disappointed. Which is unusual for him. Any chance of a good bit of killing he's normally in there.
I think he's started the sort of metamorphosis from warmonger to pacifist.
Yeah.
Like he's realised that these aliens don't have weapons of mass destruction after all.
Back in the main tunnel, Kirk briefs the security red shirts that the monster is even more dangerous now that it has been wounded.
Yes, but he is shocked to hear Spock give an order to the red shirts to potentially capture the creature.
Yes, and this is immediately overruled by Kirk, who tells him to shoot to kill, and when they have left, he pulls Spock up in this and reminds him who is in charge and what the orders were.
Yes, and then seemingly he punishes him by taking him off the mission.
Yeah, I think he assigns him to support Scotty fixing the pump.
Spock almost seems hurt by this, but it turns out it's not a punishment so much as a act of concern.
Yeah, he's aware that they are in grave danger and thinks that, well, he doesn't want the two leaders of the Enterprise to be potentially killed.
Well, that's what he tells Spock, but I think he wants to protect his friend.
Yeah.
You could say, even as unprofessional as that might be, given the fact that he has the opportunity.
However, when he is told of the exact probability of this happening, he admits that logically it's fine for them both to remain, but does ask him to stay out of trouble.
I think he's pleased for the camaraderie. Scotty, at this point, comes on comms advising that the jury-rigged pump has failed.
So Kirk orders an evacuation to the Enterprise, but Vanderberg tells him that he wants to keep key personnel down there, even though Kirk tells him that there are not enough phasers.
Yeah, no, they're just going to use clubs.
That's the type of hillbilly thing, isn't it? It's the
Pitchforks,
the cliche of aliens landing somewhere and maybe some redneck has got a shotgun to welcome it. It's
yeah,
a club. What are you talking about? This is a monster that can cut through rock. What do you think a little club's going to do?
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyhow, Scotty advises that they have at the most 10 hours to live if they stay on the planet.
So he is told to keep them up to date with constant status reports. And we head down to level 23, where Kirk instructs Vanderberg and his men to team up with members from the Enterprise. And then they split into teams and head off in different directions.
Yes, Kirk and Spock remain together, which I suspect reduces the odds of them both surviving.
Yes. Spock at this point, he's got a distant look in his face.
Well, I think he's genuinely concerned that they're all going to be killed.
But not just that, because he tells Kirk that they are being watched. He is sure of it.
That's true.
So in the tunnel.
Yes, they find 2 new tunnels that merge further down.
Or converge.
Merge, converge means the same, doesn't it?
Tomato.
Yeah.
Potato. Unless you're in sort of Spain, you don't say potato.
Potatoes. Yeah.
They forced that one, I always thought.
It is a little bit odd.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, they're going to take one tunnel each. It's sort of a reluctantly reached decision, I would say, from Kirk.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's 2 tunnels, there's 2 of us, I suppose we have to split up. Good luck, pal.
And on his own, Kirk comes across a layer of the silicon nodules and communicates to Spock to tell him of his find.
I'm quite surprised that their communicators get a signal this far underground.
That's true. But I think it's communicator to communicator. They don't have to go up to a satellite.
Short range, yeah.
Yeah. Spock tells him not to damage them, but before he can explain why, we see the monster push over some rocks in an attempt to kill Kirk.
This is where it takes down the roof support.
Yes.
It takes the beam holding up the roof down, and the roof comes down on Kirk.
Fortunately, he is okay, but there's now been a cave-in, so he can't head back.
Yeah, and Spock's heard this, and he's extremely anxious, shouting for his friend until he gets a response.
Yeah, but he does decline his offer to phaser him out of there.
Yes, in case it causes further instability.
Yeah, and it's okay because he's still able to proceed forward.
Yes, but just as they cut off the conversation, Kirk is faced with another challenge.
What's that?
The monster.
Yes, they are at a standoff, as it appears the monster understands what the phaser can do and backs off every time it is pointed at them, but he won't let Kirk past.
No, but Kirk's not really trying to get past.
No, he seems quite intrigued. I think he understands quite early as well that the monster isn't being overly aggressive.
No, it's not. It's reacting to what happened earlier with the phaser.
Right. Spock now communicates and informs him that he has new readings, that the creature is nearby. Why didn't Kirk immediately communicate with Spock?
I think he was concerned that if he took his eye off the monster, it might charge at him.
Yeah, fair point.
Kirk says there's he's got a good idea of who the monster is too.
And Spock, well, we said earlier on that perhaps Spock was becoming more of a pacifist or less aggressive, but he immediately advises Kirk to kill it.
He's almost distraught at Kirk's refusal. I think he thinks he's going to come around this tunnel and find these charred remains.
Yeah.
And he's almost in tears asking Kirk to shoot it.
Sure. But Kirk points out that it is not explicitly threatening him at this point.
No, Spock's not buying it though.
No, he again reiterates his opinion, and he says he must kill it, and that he is on his way. Don't worry, I'll save you, my captain.
Spock runs in, taking aim at the creature moments later. But he's urged by Kirk to lower his weapon.
Yeah,
join him.
I think he's had a casual chat with it, and it seems to have formed they seem to have formed a bond.
Well, Kirk's sitting down now, he's put his weapon away.
It reminded me a little of Chunk and Sloth from the Goonies.
Oh, that's sweet. Spock, I think, is relieved at this stage and is happy to take a more peaceful approach, given that there's no obvious threat.
Yeah, I mean, it's so relaxed, actually, that the creature allows Spock to pass across him to get beside Kirk.
Yeah, and he kind of squats down next to where Kirk's sitting, and again he notes that there's a lot of nodules.
And I think he confirms, or he says that he thinks this may provide, or they may provide, the answer.
Yes, he doesn't explain what that is though.
But it does suggest something else.
Yes, a mind meld. For some reason he talks as if Kirk's never heard of this.
Yeah, I think he's talking to new viewers.
They've used it in a number of earlier episodes. Anyhow, Kirk understands that this will make Spock vulnerable, and he appreciates the offer, and if it will help, then they should try it.
So Spock gives it a go, but all he can determine is that the creature is in agony. I thought, no wonder. You've been phasering it. Parts of his body's fallen off.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
No, exactly. After the link is broken, the creature has learned English.
Apparently, yes, because it now has a more direct approach to communication as it shuffles over to a rock and, after a bit of activity, reveals a message.
No kill I. What is that? A plea for us not to kill it? Or a promise that it won't kill us?
I don't know, Captain. Evidently it gained an immediate knowledge of us from its empathy with me. In my brief contact with the creature's mind, I discovered it as a highly intelligent, extremely sophisticated animal. In great pain, of course, because of its wound. But not reacting at all like a wounded creature. It calls itself a hoarder.
Horta. Mr. Spock, we need that retardation mechanism. You must reestablish communications with it.
Captain, it has no reason to give us the device. And apparently every reason for wishing us off this planet.
Yes, I'm aware of that. If we could only win its confidence. Dr. McCoy, this is Captain Kirk.
Yes, Captain.
Grab your medical kit and come down here on the double. I've got a patient for you.
Is somebody injured? What happened?
Never mind. Just come down to the 23rd level. You'll be led to us by tricorder readings. Kirk out.
Jim, I remind you that this is a silicon-based form of life. Dr. McCoy's medical knowledge will be totally useless.
He's a healer, and let him heal. Mr. Spock, you must reestablish communications. I want to know why it suddenly took to murder.
To obtain that kind of communication, Captain, it will be necessary to touch it.
McCoy not getting any information at all out of Kirk there.
No.
Just come down. Fix something. Bring a trowel.
And so, with trepidation, Spock approaches the monster and manages to place his hands on it before beginning to mind meld again.
Meanwhile, Kirk gets in touch with Giotto, tells him to keep the miners back but let McCoy through when he arrives.
Yeah, I think Vanderberg and his men are agitating to move through in search of the monster. Yeah, they've got their pitchforks ready and their torches lit.
That's it. Through Spock, the Horta begins to speak about murder and the end of eternity.
Tell me everything, he says.
McCoy arrives at this point.
No, tell me everything he says.
I'll tell you everything he says.
Yeah.
I've only written those two things. He speaks of murder and the end of eternity. Death, I think, at some point. Thousands.
Yeah, as well as pain, pity, the thousands, devils, the chamber of the ages, the altar of tomorrow, murderers, stop them, kill, strike
These are all
back.
season 3 episodes.
I think a lot of them, yeah, I thought that myself. The altar of tomorrow definitely sounds like an episode.
Yeah.
Harry Potter and the chamber of the ages. At this point, McCoy enters, but stops in shock as he sees what Spock is engaged in. It's
It's
almost
like
like
a different angle from us.
it's almost like when you were a kid, and your mother walked into your bedroom.
When I was a kid.
Yes, remember that time you told me?
No, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Anyway,
Kirk asks McCoy to help heal the creature, but he says for the first time that he's a doctor, not a bricklayer. And this will become a trope.
coincidentally, I was watching some Seinfeld last night.
Did they use that trope?
What trope?
I'm a doctor, not a whatever.
No, it was George's mother walked in on him.
I think we've moved on from that already. You should have remembered this 30 seconds ago.
And they ended up having a contest between the main characters based on what happened,
Okay,
which is not appropriate for this podcast.
well, let's move on. Spock, communicating with the Horta, is now able to tell Kirk where to get the pump. So Kirk heads off looking for it. We get a brief glimpse of Giotto holding Appel and the other miners back before Kirk finds the Chamber of the Ages.
During all this, Spock's still melding away, isn't he?
He is. He's trying to get this information that Kirk's asking him for.
What does he say this time? What sort of patter does he come out with?
I didn't even write it down. I know that he gets the location of the pump, but he's also shouting about Hortas and...
Yeah, well, the end of life, eternity stops, go to the chamber of the ages, cry for the children, walk carefully, in the vault of tomorrow, sorrow for the murdered children, the thing you search for is there, go, sadness, for the end of things, there is a passageway in the tunnel.
So he slipped in the information there.
Oh, yeah. At the tunnel end, things are heating up, aren't they, with...
Yes, Giotto's having to physically hold Appel and the others back from the passageway.
Inside it, Kirk ends up in a room with many of the modules, and several have been opened.
Or broken,
Yes.
I think. I think this is the Chamber of the Ages.
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it?
Why not?
Back in the tunnel, an agitated McCoy is on communications with Ahura.
Is it Uhura?
Well, I think it will be.
It might as well be. It'll be the only time there's a woman in this episode.
Yeah, there's not, is there?
I think maybe one passed through the background of an earlier scene, but that was it.
You told me this is your favourite episode as well.
That's not why.
Okay.
McCoy is demanding that something be beamed down for him.
Yeah. Spock is still melding.
Yes, the Horta now anticipates its own imminent death.
It's time to sleep. It is over. Failure. The murderers have won. Death is welcome. Let it end here. Stop being such a crybaby.
Yeah, I think it's exaggerating.
At this, Kirk returns, holding an open nodule, and tells Spock to come out of the meld, which he does.
Eventually.
You don't... You let him, I would imagine you have to let Spock come out of the meld on it. You don't give him a shake. Come on, you, out!
Yeah.
Oh, dangerous!
Permanently assumes the personality
You
of
don't wake up a sleepwalker, that type of thing.
Yeah. Anyhow, he explains to Spock that he has recovered the pump and that he believes these nodules are Horta eggs. Spock confirms that he's thought that for most of the episode, just hasn't said yet.
Yeah. And he surmises that the miners must have destroyed thousands of them.
No wonder the Horta was mad at them.
At the tunnel end, we cut to a Pell who loses patience and strikes a guard, allowing his men to overpower the Enterprise crew before Vanderberg leads his hordes down the tunnel.
He does. Pitchforks in the air.
Yeah, they arrive as McCoy is working on the monster with a bucket of paste. But Kirk warns them that the first one to fire is dead and explains why.
That thing has killed 50 of my men.
And you've killed thousands of her children.
What?
Those round silicon nodules that you've been collecting and destroying, they're her eggs. Tell them, Mr. Spock.
There have been many generations of Horta on this planet. Every 50,000 years, the entire race dies, all but one, like this one. But the eggs live. She cares for them, protects them. And when they hatch, she is the mother to them, thousands of them. This creature here is the mother of her race.
The Horta is intelligent, peaceful, mild. She had no objection to sharing this planet with you until you broke into her nursery and started destroying her eggs. Then she fought back in the only way she knew how, as any mother would fight when her children are in danger.
We didn't know. How could we? But you mean if these eggs hatch, there'll be thousands of those things crawling around down here?
This is where they live. They digest rock. They tunnel for nourishment.
And they are the most inoffensive of creatures. They harbor ill will toward no one.
Oh, look, we have per diem to deliver.
Yes, I know. Here's your circulating pump. You've complained that this planet is a mineralogical treasure house if you had the equipment to get at it. Well, gentlemen, the Horta moves through rock the way we move through air, and it leaves tunnels. The greatest natural miners in the universe, seems to me, that we could make an agreement, reach a modus vivendi. They tunnel, you collect and process. And your process operation would be 1,000 times more profitable.
To be fair to Vanderberg, when he learns new information, he doesn't get defensive or try and justify what they did. He accepts that this is the case and seems apologetic for it.
That's right. I have no problem with how Vanderberg has acted in this episode. And that's what I mentioned earlier. I think they tried to paint him as if you should dislike him at first so that they could turn him around. But I was always with him.
Yeah, yeah. Appel's more of a pain.
Oh, yeah.
He
Don't
needs
trust
to be
him.
corroded.
Yeah. Of course, this deal sounds fine to Vanderberg, but Spock points out that it won't work if the Horta dies.
But McCoy has saved the Horta, he's quite pleased to report.
Yeah, he's very full of himself. I think he says that in this mood, he could cure a rainy day.
Yeah. Kirk asks Spock to put this proposal for this joint mode of work to
before we get to that, how did McCoy, let's give McCoy his due, how did he sort it?
He had thermoconcrete beamed down, which was mostly silicon, and basically troweled it into the wound.
Yeah, well
as
done.
a sort of,
A bit of lateral thinking from him.
That's
Problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the big sort of white blister that had formed, the sort of pus-filled.
I mean, in fairness, I think he's
wound.
getting ahead of himself. It's like, it works just now, but he might die in like 2 hours or 2 days' time.
Yeah, he might have lost too much blood or something. There wasn't really a lot of blood coming out of it. But
No, but you've plastered concrete on him.
yeah.
That'll definitely work. Poisoned him.
Yeah. It's like one of us, I've put charcoal on him. It's made of carbon, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Put a diamond in his ear. That's
Yeah, sorry, where were you?
Yes, Kirk asks Spock to put this proposal to the Horta, and Spock takes the opportunity to mock all the humans around him.
How?
He says that the Horta has a very logical mind, and after close association with humans, he finds that refreshing.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
No.
Back up in the bridge.
Yes, everything's been resolved.
Kirk communicates down to Vanderberg, who has pleasing news.
Yes, the eggs are hatching, and the babies just start tunneling immediately.
Those little devils. You can't be doing. That's what I'm saying. These tunnels need to be controlled.
Yeah, but the babies, they're only making baby-sized tunnels.
Yeah, but babies grow into bigger monsters.
Yeah, by then they've learned.
No, they won't learn. They can't be trained. They're basically just got slaves now. Is that what you're saying?
That's like saying the worms in the soil might make your garden collapse.
No, because the worms don't grow into. They don't grow up.
Yeah, if you cut them in half, they become two worms.
They do?
That's not true.
Is it not?
I don't think so. I think they just die eventually.
Anyway, because of this, they have already found huge deposits of pergium as well as other precious metals.
Gold and
rolling in it, absolutely loving it.
I assume that Vanderberg and perhaps the other colonists are personally invested in this.
Or do they have to? I mean, who owns it?
Yeah, they're not working for the Federation, they're fulfilling orders. Because we saw previously with the Muds women,
yes,
it's the miners who own the operation.
Maybe they're on a share. Maybe the Federation own it overall, but they're on basically commission.
Maybe, but they're going to be wealthy. Kirk points this out, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Vanderberg makes a comment about the Horta being okay once you get used to their appearance and ends the conversation.
Yeah, Spock notes with a smile that this was what the Horta said about humans.
Yes. McCoy tries to get a dig in, but it rebounds quite badly on him.
How, what? Tell me.
He asks whether the Horta had anything to say about Spock's ears. And Spock notes that she thought they were the most attractive human characteristic, and he didn't have the heart to tell her he was the only one with that. Kirk queries this, though. And Spock responds that the Horta is remarkably intelligent and sensitive with impeccable taste.
Yeah, but even Kirk gets in on the ribbing of Spock at this point, telling him that his immodesty would suggest that he's becoming more human all the time, which, of course, Spock reacts to with...
Yeah, he doesn't have to stand here and take this abuse.
Full insulted attitude.
They're on to another adventure.
They are.
I think that was a really good, one of the best closing scenes that we've had, and I think even Leonard Nimoy has said it's one of his favourites.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. No one irritated me in...
Appel.
Appel did, yeah, okay. Appel irritated me.
The fact that the monster didn't kill Appel was frustrating.
Yeah, he should have went, shouldn't he? I mean, there was enough deaths going around that we could have...
They could have had a scene where he burst in and they tried to shoot the monster and it dissolved them, and then they had the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been good.
That would have been good.
Justice.
That aside, I thought that the message, the sort of moral to the story was well thought out and significant and something that you could get behind.
I mean, it's very Star Trek. This, you've got a killer monster and you resolve it by making peace rather than killing it.
Yeah.
I quite like that they called the planet Janus, because there's a lot of sort of two-sided things in the episode. You know, like the difference between the two generations of Horta moving from one to the other, and then the difference between the old way of mining and the new way that they were going to have in the future, and then obviously the change in people's attitudes from being aggressive and hostile to being colleagues at the end. I thought that was quite appropriate.
Tell me why. What's the relevance to Janus?
The Janus face is the sort of the two-faced. I think it's Greek mythology.
Okay. I
found it a bit odd that Scotty couldn't recreate the parts needed to make a new pump.
Why?
Well, it's the 23rd century. Surely they can just get the part.
No, I think
remake the part.
It's been there for 50 years, and Vanderberg said it's never been replaced before. So it's a 50. That's like us.
They must have access though to the plans and the designs for these sorts of things.
Yeah, not on the Enterprise. I'm sure they could go away and manufacture it, but that would be equivalent of going to a mechanic with, something from the Model T Ford and saying, "I need this. Do you have it in stock?" Saying, "No, I can't fix your car." Or an old computer from the 60s.
Maybe.
My computer's broke. We need this? No, I don't have that.
Maybe.
I've not been trained on that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing him a disservice there.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
No.
Okay. Should we go on with that?
I liked it.
Yeah, it was very good.
It's a pleasant one.
Yes, I watched it twice.
Did you?
I normally don't.
Okay.
But yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Got trivia?
I do have some.
Let's hear it.
Originally aired on the 9th of March 1967. It was directed by Joseph Pevney. We've heard about him back when we talked about Arena. This was the fourth of his 14 episodes. Gene Kuhn got the writing credit. This is his third writing credit, but I'm going to save his bio for next week. It's quite an important one. Vanderberg was played by Ken Lynch. This was his only Star Trek appearance, but he'd earlier made a career of playing Irish cops in westerns. He showed up on other programmes like The Fugitive and The Andy Griffith Show, and he played Charlie in the Hitchcock classic North by Northwest. He died in 1990 at the age of 79, so he was around about 56 when they made this episode.
What? Okay. Well, people always look so... It's like, if you ever see pictures of old football players, soccer players from the 40s and 50s with their brill cream hair, they all, even like somebody like Bobby Charlton,
Look in their 50s when they were
look
playing.
in their 50s, yeah. And it must have been like in their 20s and their 30s.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, Barry Russo, who played Commander Giotto, the head of the security team, he looked fairly old in the episode. This was the first of 2 appearances in Star Trek. He doesn't play the same character the next time. I thought he was quite a good character.
Yeah.
I'd have brought him back. Anyhow, he'd earlier shown up in The Fugitive and The Untouchables, and he would go on to appear in Mission Impossible and Hawaii Five-0, amongst other things, before his death in 2003 at 78. So he was 42 in the episode.
If you told me he was 52, I would have accepted it, but not the worst.
Bob Hoy and Janos Prohaska were responsible for the Horta. Prohaska actually invented the creature. He developed this costume, which led Gene Kuhn to write the episode for the creature. And he might be best remembered as the talking cookie mad bear from the Andy Williams show. He died in 1974 with his son in a plane crash. Bob Hoy did as much stunt work as acting. He doubled for the likes of Charles Bronson, Robert Vaughn, Tony Curtis over the years. He appeared in The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Good movie.
And in Dallas, amongst other shows, before his death in 2010 at the age of 82. Finally, I've missed out Ed Appel because he wasn't that interesting, but Monty O'Grady played one of the other engineers, and he's our Columbo connection this week. This was his second Star Trek appearance. He's one of the council members in A Taste of Armageddon, and he's going to, I think, appear in another episode coming up. Anyhow, he's also appeared in shows like Batman, Murder, She Wrote, The Love Boat, as well as 5 Columbos. He
must have been a bit... 'cause I don't recognise the name.
Yeah, it was just people in the background mostly, but interestingly, his first episode was opposite Leonard Nimoy in A Stitch in Crime, and he also showed up in Fade Into Murder opposite William Shatner.
I wonder if that... I mean, that must be deliberate.
Oh, who knows? Then maybe there's a connection.
Pulled a few strings, get my gig.
Yeah, maybe they said to Monty, can you get those guys off Star Trek that you were an engineer in an episode of once in season 1? Yeah. He said yes.
They are 2 of the finest episodes of Columbo.
Very good. Other trivia. So I think we mentioned during the episode there was no women present, apart from I think one non-speaking role very briefly.
Which is why it's your favourite episode?
No. William Shatner's father died during the filming of this episode, and he recalls this in his memoir Star Trek Memories. And he, for some reason, this makes it his favourite episode, I think, perhaps because of the way that the crew and the cast rallied around him. He refused an offer to delay filming and carried on to the end of the episode. He went to, I think, his father's funeral, or he went back to the family home briefly. But the only scenes that he missed were the close-ups of Spock mind melding with the Horta.
Yeah, sad, but very professional.
Yeah. And I've mentioned already that this was the first time McCoy uses the I'm a doctor, not something else, which would become a trope.
Does it? Okay, look out for that.
In terms of international titles, the Spanish go with Monstruo Escondido, which means hidden monster. The Germans opted for Horta Rettet ihre Kinder, which is the Horta saves her children. It's kind of giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it gives everything away.
It does.
And our Japanese friends chose the more dramatic Chite Kaiju Horta, which translates as Horta, the underground monster.
Yeah.
Next week, it is a very important episode. It's Errand of Mercy, the 26th episode of Season 1.
Important, you say?
It is, and you'll know why as soon as you watch it.
Okay.
In the meantime, we're going to disappear for 7 days, and we'll see you all when we come back.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.